Thing. Okay, so, all right, so today's going to be a very special stream. And the reason why is because I received a message earlier today. And please, by all means, let me know if you do not have access, if you can't hear me clearly. But I received a message today by one of my longtime readers, and it is essentially about how they have a son about high school age that is a lot like me in a lot of ways. He comes from a tragic background, black father, and struggles with his identity. And this is something that I have posted about extensively for years. Now, the majority of my content on this issue has been taken down ahead of time. I took ahead of this live stream. However, I have been posting about this for years. I have a plethora of videos that go really deeply into my own psychology, video memoiring to my children. And if you were to view all these videos, you would be able to get a very clear understanding of how I see the world, the struggles I've been through, especially if you read my memoir, Fighting for Redemption, the inner psychological struggles that I've been through pertaining to identity as I've grown and self-actualized. With that said, I would like to believe, I'm very confident in the claim of having conquered these demons. And the reason why is because I've made my ultimate decision on what I want to do with the rest of my life, what ideals I will devote myself to, while accepting how I'm going to be the bad guy in some people's stories. I think that is, I don't think it is, in fact, an inevitable aspect of choosing one's sacrifices as they grow, mature into full adulthood, both biologically and metaphysically. What it means to truly be a man, for instance. However, that is not to say that simply because I have reached that level in my own respective journey that everyone else like me has. As a matter of fact, very few have reached a level of emotional and psychological security that I have in life. With that said, I definitely have words of guidance. There are so many different ways I can help, and the extent to which I can help other people navigate identity crises like what I went through growing up simply cannot be done proper justice with a single 30-minute live stream. But I can address the core of what I was asked for today, and that is any words of advice that I can give someone struggling to find his true tribe. As this individual is oft told he's too white to hang out with the blacks in his respective vicinity, and he's too black to hang out with the whites, and cruelly told to just go hang out with the Mexicans. All right, so what I have to say to that is fuck that noise. Okay? Just be very straightforward. This is particularly difficult to do while in the high school years because I understand that you have to go to the same school every day, you have to see the same people every day, and you're kind of bound to that environment, to that interconnected series of social groups in a way that I am no longer as an adult who is freely out on his own. So I understand completely how now that I am a free adult out into the world, I have advantages pertaining to circumventing the pain of judgment. Because unless you're a total psychopath who just doesn't care, or just you're antisocial, you just don't care what people think of you, it doesn't register. It is a natural survival mechanism to care to at least some extent what the people around you think and to seek a tribe. However, there is a flip side to this that you can achieve, and that is building your own true tribe. And this is the satori that I came to, the enlightened that I came to throughout the process of years of trial and error. So let's back up for a second and think, how do cliques form in high school? And in general, it's not purely by race, if we're being honest. Unless we're talking about, like, even if we were going into 1950s or pre-1950s academic environments, pre-Jim Crow. Oh, should I say pre the abolishment of Jim Crow, more accurately. Even when you had a fully black school, those black schools still divided into cliques based on psychographic differences, even if they were racially homogenous. So, if we just take a second to not think about race at all, if it's possible, just entertain this hypothetical. And in this hypothetical, let's just say that everyone is the same exact color. Doesn't matter the cultural difference. Well, it doesn't matter what they are in reality. But let's just say that we're approaching this matter, this social matter, from the viewpoint of pure psychographics. Race not being a factor, even though I understand race absolutely influences the psychology, or can influence one's psychology. Let's just simply keep it within the realm of the psychographic only, while willfully ignoring race, just for a moment. How would the cliques form? The respective tribes. Ordinarily, there's a leader, even if they do not consciously identify themselves as the leader of the respective group. There always is one. It's natural human dynamics. Humans are pack animals in general. So even if the person doesn't consciously identify as a leader, there's always a leader. What makes them the leader? And for every clique, there's going to be differences in nuance, but there are universal principles that determines who is at least that first person that is acknowledged as a leader if the other group members are forced to. Using my own example, I've thought long and hard about why this one particular household that I was attracted to throughout high school, that I was not the leader of. And that was because, and I wasn't the only one. We called it, I'm not going to mention their name specifically, but we called it let's call them the Johnsons. Even though that's not the real name, let's call them the Johnsons. We call it the Johnsons' Home for Wayward Boys. So it wasn't just me, it was a multitude of boys who congregated in this one specific home. And the reason why was because, even if we didn't consciously realize it, this home provided us with the safety and literal food, nutrients, and fatherly wisdom, and at least the perception of love and acceptance, with technology such as big screen TVs and home theater system that we otherwise ourselves couldn't afford in our own homes. And so we would come there because it was an oasis, and we valued their resources so highly. And by resources, I don't mean money alone. I mean the wisdom. Like, wisdom itself is a resource. So the conversation, the the comfort, the feeling of comfort with their furniture as a resource, as a kind of tangible resource. So the resources collectively, depending on how you want to define resources, we value that so highly that by their control of it, we acquiesced to their each and every whim, because we were terrified of losing their respect, which meant being kicked out of their house, which meant losing that womb, so to speak. If we were all damaged boys, and we were multiracial, by the way, it was a multiracial group. Some of us were black, some of us were like me, and you know, I'm classifiably black, but I mean, like, some of us were truly black, others were mixed race, black dominant, some were whites, some were Asians, and some would just come and go. But essentially, we were ultimately a white majority but multiracial group. And we were all attracted to this one home in a way that formed a hierarchy, whether we wanted to admit it or not. And at the top of this hierarchy was Mr. Johnson, and then Mrs. Johnson, and then he had two sons. And there are other dynamics pertaining to which son would have had the higher rank, but that's irrelevant to the point that I'm making, the substance to what I'm saying here. With that in mind, what attracted us to this? And it would be the resources. The resources created a kind of metaphysical light, or was like a bonfire. And a bonfire itself is a form of resource. It is a resource for heat, warmth, conversation, right? So their home, metaphysically speaking, was like a bonfire. And we were lost, wayward boys who stopped by for its warmth, fell in love with its warmth, and stayed because of its warmth. I stayed with them for years, 7 years. As a matter of fact, I not only stayed with them, I gained permission to be their legally registered address for when I enrolled in the military. I didn't use my biological parents' address. I used their address, and I had their permission. With that said, throughout the years, I have absolutely wrestled with my racial identity. And if you read and I'm going to set that aside of what I said about the Johnsons. I'll come back to it. I'll rope around to deliver a very solid point. Before I met the Johnsons, I struggled alone. Ordinarily, you would see me with the white groups, and what attracted me wasn't even necessarily their skin color. It was really culture. It was the music. Ordinarily, you'd see me hanging out with the goths, metalheads. If I was ever invited to a cookout, which has happened more than once, I would be usually the only black person, put that in air quotes, only black person there. And I absolutely felt it. And throughout this process, I was like a tumbleweed, trying to find somewhere to fit in. And I did try to fit in with blacks. I did make the attempt. In fact, in certain aspects of my life, I was forced to, because I've been homeless 3 times in my life. Twice when I was a child through no fault of my own, and once when I was an adult after I got out of the military, but that's a different story. While I was a child and went homeless, there was a small stint when I found myself in Camden, New Jersey, and which is a hardcore ghetto. At one point, I believe it had the highest murder rate in the U.S. for a short time, for at least a year. And then there was another ghetto called Lindenwold, New Jersey. And in these places, I was kind of forced to hang out with blacks, even if I didn't necessarily agree with them. And for the sake of my own survival, I had to pretend to be something that I wasn't, which is ironic, because if we're speaking about the basis of race and I am black dominant, then that begs the question about truly the nature of identity, which catalyzes the entire identity crisis. What does it mean to be black? What does it mean to be white? What do these things mean? And that is the crux of the identity crisis. Do you have to act a certain way simply because you are black, or simply because you are white, or black dominant, or white dominant? And it's this crisis particularly pointed in mixed race people like you and I. And so I most certainly struggled to find groups sometimes, and I'm not proud of this, I'm just simply stating a fact for the record of my own story. I absolutely had to pretend to be blacker than I really was, when in fact, and it's sad because if I were to put on my figurative blackface, that was considered, by people who had very flawed inductive reasoning, that was considered the true me. They would find that more believable. Right? And so I've learned to use that to my advantage in a variety of different ways, if not even my survival. When speaking to arrogant, racist, white liberals who swear they're not racist, but are actually they're probably some of the most racist people of all, just even if they can't admit it to themselves, by pretending to be blacker in nature than I really was, I've been able to leverage their own weaknesses against them in a variety of situations where their own prejudices were at their own loss. And then there are other times where, even against black people themselves, if I felt as though I was in danger, and many times I have been, pretending to be black or blacker, stereotypically blacker, was taken as more authentic by them as well. So, I'm sure you probably know the feeling of being racially stereotyped by what are supposed to be your own people, right? So, and then there's the Asians. Asians have had an undeniable influence, both genetically and culturally, on me as a person, which is very evident in my memoir, Fighting for Redemption, as well as key choices I've made throughout life, both good and bad. And throughout this entire process, I stumbled from one social group to the next, never fully fitting in with any. And it wasn't truly until after high school, and I hope that is not the case with you. I think there should be a way that you can figure this out and how to apply what I'm about to say to you before you leave high school. Right? You shouldn't have to try to reinvent the wheel or feel forced to reinvent the wheel of identity the way that I did. You should be able to take the seams of my advice, the substance of my advice, what I'm about to say, and apply it before you get out into the world, rather than go through all the trial and error that I had to. Hopefully you can stand upon my shoulders. And if I need to make another video to explain in further detail, I will. But essentially what you want to do is figure out, after analyzing what makes the groups what they are, why people, and this ties me back, I'm going to tie back into the Johnsons. Why does each clique form? Why does each social group form? And you have to be honest with yourself, it's not always about race. In fact, especially in modern America, race is a factor, of course, but seldom is it the only factor. And as long as we're intellectually honest about that, then we can get a very clear analytical picture about the apparatuses of social groups, the dynamics of the psychology of the members that are in the in-group and the outsiders who might hover around but are never truly accepted as real members or full members. And at the epicenter of every group, at the center, there's always some form of value, some form of resource. And what that resource may be, what that value may be, is different for every single group. There's nuance involved, hence the differences between the groups. But if you can figure out what is it within you that is truly valuable, your inner fire, right? You can start your own bonfire. Place yourself at the top of your own respective hierarchy. and deliver that, because you're radiating that value, people will be attracted to you. And the way that you would do that is, and I don't know you well enough. If I did know you well enough, I could go in very specific as to what is great about you and how you could, I don't want to say market, but emanate that value around you. Stop worrying so much about if this group, I know it hurts. I know it hurts. But try your best to stop worrying about what one group thinks of you, what another group thinks of you, whether they accept you or if they don't accept you, or if you're one of the guys. Because that changes. You can see through the illusion of the social dynamics when you first understand what it is, when you ask the question and there answer it, about what is the value attracting, what is the glue of the group to begin with, and how there is something about you, there's something about everyone that is uniquely valuable about them, that if you are able to further develop, there's an inner fire within you that if you're able to further develop, if you're able to add kindling, if you're able to add logs, and you could build this fire, you control the resource. You radiate whatever that resource may be, and that attracts people to you on your terms. Whereas you no longer have to acquiesce to the social rules of this group or that group. You no longer have to worry about if you're one of the guys. You're not just, in this case, you wouldn't simply be one of the guys. You are the guy. You are the leader in which people radiate to you. And they're worried about whether or not you approve of them. Now, not everyone has it within them to be that kind of a leader, but not everyone has the strength to. So that begs the next question. The person that gave me the request for this content said that you were going into the Marines soon. Okay, that's cool. The fact that you would have that, you have the courage, so that tells me right from the door, you've got the courage, you've got the backbone, you've got everything you need. If that's a genuinely viable path for you, then you already have it. Question is, are you applying it properly? However you've been damaged by your father, even if you're not consciously aware of just how much or the context of how he may have damaged you, blinding you from being able to see how you are objectively better than him. And then on that basis, able to go further than he ever could. And I'm not going to go into detail pertaining to what the person told me about your father. But if you dig deep and you understand what makes social groups what they are to begin with, you can almost see it like coding in the Matrix. You can see like, okay, you're attracted, this group is pulled together through this. Here's where my value comes from. Here's the drive that I get from whatever scarring to build that fire larger. And then you can attract people to that in a way that makes you the leader of your respective group. Ask yourself, the question is not what group accepts me. The question is, what value am I able to emanate as necessary to create my own? And that is a very hard question to answer with action, because that requires, in order to really answer it, like some people, for example, a bad way of answering it would be with money alone. Money is a resource. Note how I'm saying that there are many different forms and definitions of resource. Could be love, it could be knowledge. People who try to use the money as the attractive resource, they don't attract friends, they attract sycophants. And then they always have to put on a facade and show off their wealth in order to maintain the financial simps around them. So you don't want to use money. What is it about you that makes other people's lives better? And I don't know you well enough to answer that question. So you have to think, what value can I bring to other people's lives? In my case, with the Johnsons, it was peace, food, wisdom, wise conversations, and surround a home theater system. How can you somehow work a job to build a really comfortable home that people would love to watch movies with you in or play video games with you in? How can you develop a character that's wonderful to speak to, that people can just listen to for hours? And you've got it. Anyone who's really suffered and not allowed their suffering to defeat them can be listened to. They've got it within them. You're training for the Marines. Okay? So here's another example. If you're training for the Marines, here's another resource example, another use case. I don't know what shape you're in, but if you're actively training for the Marines and you are at least an intermediate in your physical training, then the value you can provide is your experience in training, as you are immediately above beginners. You would be the leader of this group that would work out and share similar values, either training for the Marines or going to weight room, whatever it may be. So you have to give yourself an honest assessment of where you are, who is beneath you, and where you can be in levels. For however high you are, whatever your level is, that is the value that you can provide easily to other people, and that is the top of the hierarchy. That's what I mean. So when I say place yourself at the top of the hierarchy, I'm not talking about become a cult leader or something. No, I'm saying, where are you in your respective journey? What have you invested within yourself to get there? Keep in mind that there's always someone behind you. There's always someone just below you that you can help lift up. But understand that in order for you to reach down, in order to lift them up, you first would have to be metaphysically above them to begin with. Develop that inner strength as well as self-awareness. And you never have to worry about being accepted in any group. Just create your own. Be valuable enough on your own. Any questions? Let's see. Let's see here. Checking the comments.
Now, the majority of my content on this.
Okay. I'm not seeing any comments there. Nancy says, that was our house all through our kids in school. Yeah. Oh, Nancy, since I'm online, I will answer your other question from the other live stream. And please don't think that I was ignoring you. I most certainly wasn't. You can see in the tiny screen, the screen, that when I refreshed it and I looked at the number of comments for YouTube, it said 0. So I guess it just didn't update or something. I wasn't checking the real-time comments. I just sort of refreshed it to see what comments had been placed, and it said 0, so I just moved on. But your question, Nancy, was, okay, if I remember correctly, and leave a comment if I'm not, if I don't remember this correctly. What would I do? How would I handle a situation in which one of my children don't want my help? Right, and this pertains to your comment that you left on the live stream video that I filmed that talked about how I am basically breeding my children to be CEOs. And I'm creating sole proprietorships and bequeathing to them sole proprietorships, companies, LLCs, and just giving them companies as their family inheritance, as a benefit of being my child, for which I will be the head chairman of a holding company that unites, that owns each of the subsidiaries for each of the children in this family empire. And you asked, and I paraphrase, what if the children don't want your help, if they see it as invasive? Right, because the initial video was about me not forcing anything upon my children and saying, okay, well, maybe if you don't want to be a physicist, fine. I don't care I don't care if you major in basket weaving, right? As long as you have a plan for how to be a great basket weaver, that reliably brings in income with that masterful art, and like you rank it at the top of Etsy or something, right? That is my take on raising children. I don't demand them to be anything other than that which their inner child truly wants them to be. I just simply ask them to do it intelligently. Your question pertained to, well, what if, even with that freedom that I grant them and that support, what if they view the support as invasive? And I thought deeply about that, Nancy, and I thought, I could see that happening. It's unlikely, but I can see it happening, and for a counterintuitive reason. Let's say one of my children rejects my help, not because they hate me, but because they love me, but because they might counterintuitively admire me the most out of all the children, and they say something like, I can see them saying something like, Dad, everything that we have, you basically bred us into CEO positions of a variety of companies that you custom designed for us, respective to our personalities as your gift of fatherhood. How many families can say that, right? And that's a compliment and a question of my own, a self-reflective question, a self-reflective question of my own integrity, because no one did that for you, Dad. You literally, you might have the DNA of entrepreneurship, right? Considering your father, my father was for people who don't know me, my father was a kingpin drug dealer in the 1980s, loosely connected to Pablo Escobar. I believe Pablo Escobar was a supplier. And that's a whole other story, right? He was he was classified as a kingpin by the FBI. And after his murder, the FBI seized all of his assets, his multitude of businesses that he had spread across the East Coast of America. And, well, there it is, right? And that led to the poverty that I experienced and mentioned earlier in this call, pertaining to how I went homeless twice. That was the catalyst for all that happening. So, but I digress. Okay, Dad, the only thing you really inherited from your dad was the DNA for entrepreneurship. And you spent years, you literally disappeared into the Chinese wilderness, literally into the Chinese wilderness. There are pictures for this, with not a dime to your name. And then you somehow come back, you die figuratively in the woods of the Chinese mountains. You come back to America, kicking ass and taking names. Like, yeah, you struggled. Yeah, you might have had to delay this product. Maybe you failed over here. But you succeeded over here, 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 and here. Here are the few things where you made mistakes, but it's understandable considering the circumstances. No matter what, even if, with that said, even if all the children make more money than you ever did, all of my brothers and sisters, or all the children that I'm speaking as that one of the hypothetical kids. Even if we all become billionaires, it would be primarily because of you as an influence and everything you did to set us up on that trajectory in life that you didn't get. So, Dad, I'm not rejecting your help because I hate you. I'm rejecting your help because I admire you. Because I want to know if I have it within me to be a fraction as unbelievable a character as you, to go truly from the homelessness of the Chinese wilderness to however you set our family up to be $1 million, billion-dollar family over the process of just a decade or two. How? And no matter what, my family, even the children that I have, will never be able to respect me quite as highly as everyone of all branches of the family stemming from you will respect you. I want that respect because I admire you, not because I hate you. And the only way I'm going to get that respect or even come close to it is if I reject your help. Therefore, you trying to help me with so much support is invasive in my eyes. Please leave me alone. Let me do this on my own. Nancy, to answer your question, and I thank you for asking it because you can clearly see that I've thought about this thoroughly once I read your comment. Let's take all of that I just said and boil it down to a toddler. It is the same dynamic, but let's simplify the scale. Let's say you have a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old who's struggling to put on their shoes. And me as their parent can easily just step forward and say, okay, let me help you put on your shoes. But my child said, no, I want to do it. I want to put on my shoes, which has happened. It has absolutely happened. That is the toddler version of, Dad, I want to be like you. I want to put on my shoes. I want to put on my shoes myself. Like, I know you can help me put on my shoes, Dad. And I know it's not that I hate you, Dad. I really want to be like you, Dad. I want to put on my shoes like you can. Right? So my answer is in this. What do I do? What have I done? And all my children have done this, by the way. At some point in their toddler years, all of them have refused my help and wanted to put on their shoes themselves. And you know what I've told them? Okay, you got it. It's on you, big boy or little big girl, So, to answer your question, Nancy, I don't think we would ever erupt as father and son or father and daughter if they told me that my help was invasive. I don't think it would come down to that. I just think all they would need to do is tell me at the dinner table, or really anywhere, but the majority of our familial conversations happen at the dinner table, and we have a table knocking tradition that every single person gets to speak, and they tell me what's on their minds every single night, almost every single night. And that's partially how I know all of my family members, even my wife. I know them through and through, both what they say and what they don't say. I watch them like a hawk. I have that Jordan Peterson referenced dominant eye, and I see all my family members every night when we're at that dinner table. I would tell my child, you got it. Okay, I respect it. But just like the toddler example, the toddler analogy, if they are struggling so hard, it's good that the toddler knows that daddy is always there to help them if they ever ask. So that is how I foresee that the most likely instance. It's unlikely that they will reject my help as invasive, but on the event that they would, I will grant them that full freedom, where it's like, okay, I'm going to leave you alone. Know that daddy loves you, and I'm here for you. All it takes is a text message, and I will save the day. Does that answer your question, Nancy? I would grant them the space, whatever space they wished, and I would respect the journey that they would want to go on to achieve that level of respect that I have in my family. And if they failed, if they stumbled, no matter what, daddy's here for them. Okay, so let's see here. Any other comments? Yeah, okay, we do have some new comments. Okay. Failed, if they stumbled, no matter what. Right now, I simply get so much from listening to how you have navigated through. Oh, Clarice says, right now, I simply get so much from listening to how you have navigated through all you have overcome to become who you are. All the wisdom and insights you have gained and using that to guide and help people. Thank you, Clarice. Thank you. All right, let's check. All right. Nancy Brown says, yes, yes, as I'm going to insert an ad lib here. Yes, that answers my question. That was beautiful. I never thought of it that way, that the resistance was to emulate. Yeah, because I'm thinking about it. Because remember, I'm wise enough to know that if I just say, oh no, that's impossible, that's not going to happen, that's possession of the Jungian shadow. That means not only could it happen, it's likely to happen because of that blind spot, that willfully blind spot of impossibility. Whereas if I'm able to step into the shadow, if I'm able to integrate or individuate the shadow and say, you know what, this is a dark unwanted, uncomfortable scenario, but it could happen. My ability to face the harsh truth of that possibility empowers me to be able to face this demon, slay it, and say, okay, this is how I can, in the event of this scenario, yield the best possible outcome, masterfully, and with wisdom. Any further comments? Okay, I'm about to end the stream. In the event of this scenario, I'm about to end the stream. What this? With wisdom. Okay. Any further questions? And okay, so without further ado, I'm about to end the stream. I'll wait maybe a few more seconds for any further comments or questions. And thank you to the original person who gave me the request. I could speak on this at length. Like I said, like the interracial identity crisis, because it's not actually that simple, and I fully acknowledge that it's not that simple. So if I could somehow talk to your son, or because it's for the audience watching. For the audience watching, this request didn't come from the son himself. It came from his mom or grandma, and I'm answering the son through that woman who sent the request. So, and this woman has been following me for years, so she knows there are lots of videos I've filmed about this, about the interracial identity crisis topic. How did I become pro-Western despite so many temptations throughout my life to hate Western civilization and to be this miserable person who doesn't want to contribute anything and leech off the system, etc., etc. Cry racism at the slightest insult or some shit like that. Yeah, so I can speak about this at length. My only concern is that I know that that's not all that people follow me for. So I fell into that sort of self-inflicted trap of, this is such a deep topic that I could post about at length, that I don't want to come off as the guy who's obsessed with race, because I'm not obsessed with race. It was a harrowing experience that I navigated while growing up with very limited guidance. I've gone through that. I've decided who I want to be as a man. And that's me. So now I can move on to other topics, which I have been. But if you want to carry on the conversation at length, we most certainly can. With that said, if anyone watching, if you could become a paid subscriber to the blog, I could answer requests like these of your own, either philosophically on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for the nortonsmind.com Substack blog, or Tuesdays and Thursdays for business and marketing, respectively. Okay, so if you want to know where to go, it's I'm going to leave a comment. It is nortonsmind.substack.com and omifirm.substack.com. These are the two different blogs. I'm going to post them in the comments now. Okay? All right. And Nancy says, wait until you think your kids weren't listening, but you hear them advise their friends exactly the same way. Yeah, possibly. All right.